Imagine losing everything: your family, your home, your freedom, your future. Now imagine waking up every single day not knowing if you'll survive the next one. Most people believe happiness comes from comfort, success, money, or status. But what if all of that disappeared tomorrow? Would your life still have meaning? This is the terrifying question explored in one of the most life-changing books ever written, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And here's what makes this book different. It wasn't written from theory. It was written from hell. Frankl survived Nazi concentration camps during World War II. He witnessed unimaginable suffering, starvation, cruelty, and death. Yet somehow, in the middle of all that darkness, he discovered one powerful truth that changed millions of lives forever. A human being can survive almost anything if they have a reason to live. Think about that for a second. This book is not just about suffering. It's about purpose. It's about resilience. It's about discovering what truly matters when everything else is stripped away. And by the end of this video, you may never look at your own problems the same way again. Viktor Frankl was an Austrian psychiatrist and neurologist who was imprisoned in several Nazi concentration camps during World War II, including Auschwitz. Before the war, Frankl had spent years studying psychology. But inside the camps, he witnessed something shocking that no textbook could explain. Some prisoners, physically stronger than others, gave up and died quickly. Meanwhile, some weaker prisoners somehow kept going. Why? Frankl realized survival wasn't only physical, it was psychological, and more importantly, spiritual. The people most likely to survive were often the ones who still believed their life had meaning. Maybe they wanted to see their loved ones again. Maybe they had unfinished work. Maybe they believed their suffering had a purpose. That discovery became the foundation of this book and later inspired Frankl's psychological method called logotherapy. The idea that the deepest human motivation is not pleasure or power, but meaning. And this is exactly where the book becomes incredibly powerful. Because even though most of us will never experience what Frankl experienced, we all face suffering in some form. Failure, loneliness, depression, loss, rejection, confusion. And the question is the same for all of us. How do you keep going when life becomes painful? This book tries to answer that. At the center of Man's Search for Meaning is one unforgettable idea. Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how. In simple words, if you have a strong reason to live, you can survive incredible hardship. Most people spend their lives chasing comfort. They think happiness comes first and meaning comes later. But Frankl argues the opposite. Meaning comes first, and happiness follows. This is where most people get it wrong. They ask, how can I avoid suffering? But Frankl asks, how can suffering itself become meaningful? That changes everything. Because pain is unavoidable in life. No one escapes heartbreak. No one escapes struggle. No one escapes loss. But according to Frankl, suffering without meaning destroys people. Suffering with meaning transforms people. And honestly, that might be one of the most important lessons ever written. Frankl describes the concentration camps in a deeply human way. Prisoners were stripped of their names, identities, clothes, possessions, even their dignity. They were treated like numbers. Food was almost non-existent. People worked in freezing conditions. Death became normal. Over time, many prisoners entered a state of emotional numbness just to survive. But Frankl noticed something fascinating. Even in the camps, some people remained compassionate. Some shared their last piece of bread. Some comforted others. Some chose kindness despite living in absolute horror. And Frankl realized something profound. Everything can be taken from a person, except one thing: the freedom to choose their attitude. Think about how powerful that is. You may not control what happens to you, but you always control how you respond. That idea alone has changed millions of lives. Because once you understand this, you stop becoming a victim of every circumstance. You begin taking ownership of your mindset. And that shift is life-changing. Frankl explains that humans usually discover meaning in 3 ways. First, through love. Inside the camps, Frankl often thought about his wife. Even when he didn't know if she was alive, the memory of her gave him strength. He realized love is one of the strongest forces on earth. Not success, not money, love. Because when you deeply care about someone or something, life suddenly becomes worth fighting for. Second, meaning comes through purposeful work. Frankl dreamed of rewriting a scientific manuscript that had been destroyed when he entered the camps. The idea that he still had important work to complete gave him a reason to survive. This is incredibly relevant today. Many people feel lost, not because they lack talent, but because they lack meaningful direction. A meaningful mission can pull you through pain that motivation never could. And third, meaning can come through suffering itself. Now, this does not mean suffering is good, but when suffering is unavoidable, we can choose how we carry it. That choice can turn tragedy into strength. And this is where the book becomes deeply emotional. Frankl believed even in suffering, human beings can preserve dignity, courage, and hope. Now, you might be thinking, this story happened decades ago during a war. What does it have to do with my life today? Everything. Because modern suffering simply looks different. Today, people suffer from anxiety, burnout, loneliness, addiction, meaninglessness. Many people wake up every morning feeling empty, even though they have comfort and technology. Why? Because humans are not built only for pleasure. We are built for purpose. This is why some wealthy people are miserable, while some struggling people remain deeply fulfilled. Frankl teaches us to stop asking, "What do I expect from life?" and instead ask, "What does life expect from me?" That question changes your perspective completely. Maybe your pain is shaping your character. Maybe your failure is preparing you for something bigger. Maybe your responsibility to others gives your life meaning. Most people never realize this until it's too late. They spend years chasing distractions instead of purpose. But purpose is what gives suffering value. And without meaning, even comfort feels empty. One of the most famous ideas from the book is this: when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. That line is powerful because life often refuses to cooperate with our plans. You lose the job, the relationship ends, the dream fails. And in those moments, growth begins when resistance ends. Another unforgettable idea is, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space lies our freedom. Freedom to choose patience over anger, discipline over excuses, hope over despair. And maybe the most emotional lesson of all is this: human beings are stronger than they think. Frankl saw people survive conditions that should have destroyed them completely, not because they were superhuman, but because they had meaning. A reason to continue, a reason to endure, a reason to hope. Man's Search for Meaning is not just a book about the Holocaust. It's a book about being human. It reminds us that life will never be perfect. Pain is unavoidable. Loss is inevitable. But meaning gives us the strength to continue anyway. And maybe that's the true message of this masterpiece. Your circumstances do not define you. Your response does. You may not control every tragedy in your life, but you can still choose courage. You can still choose purpose. You can still choose hope. And once you discover a meaningful reason to live, you become far stronger than fear. So if you're going through a difficult season right now, remember this. Your struggle may not be meaningless. Your pain may be shaping someone stronger, and your story may not be over yet. Because sometimes the people who survive the darkest moments become the light for others. And that is the true power of meaning.